Good evening and welcome to IHW Council's special web series on women's health, START, Supporting Treatment in Assisted Reproductive Therapy. I'm Anisha Nair and you're watching our exclusive show on women's health supported by Bharat Serums and Vaccines under its public awareness initiative. The COVID pandemic has put the spotlight squarely on our health. The arrival of the vaccine and the start of the inoculation process has brought hope to millions who want to stay safe and return back to their pre corona days. But there are many others who find themselves in despair as some of their dreams have suffered a setback because of the many restrictions of the lockdown and the fear of COVID 19. I'm talking about couples who dream about starting a family but are unable to do so because of infertility. Infertility over the years has emerged as one of the most common health issues many couples are facing. According to the Indian Society of Assisted Reproduction, infertility currently affects about 10 to 14% of the Indian population. And this scenario is worse in cities where one out of every six couples is impacted. Our show is special as we are going to discuss aspects related to fertility and IVF treatment. Bharat Serum Vaccines Project START is an initiative that aims at providing support to couples beyond medicines and with initiatives like microfinancing the treatment and counseling. Project START encourages couples to stay on course for their IVF treatments to achieve their goal of parenthood. Today, we will be discussing managing the emotional impact when dealing with infertility. Now, there may be many questions in your minds on what you should do to succeed and be peaceful in this entire journey of starting a family. On our show today, we have an expert joining us to answer all your queries. Please welcome Dr. Firuza Parikh, Director, Department of Assisted Reproduction and Genetics, Fertility, Jaslok International Fertility Center, Mumbai. Welcome to the show, Dr. Parikh.
Thank you, Disha.
Dr. Parikh is a well-known, renowned fertility specialist. After acquiring her MD from the prestigious Yale College, she set up the first IVF center in the private hospital, Jaslok Hospital, in 1989. She is the editor-in-chief of the scientific journal Fertility and Sterility, Indian edition, and is also the member of the editorial board of the scientific journal Fertility and Sterility, Science USA. Before I begin our conversation, I would like to call upon all the viewers who are watching today to keep sending us your questions in the comment box. Just type it in. If you have any questions, there's nobody better than Dr. Parikh to answer all your questions. And we will try to take up as many questions as you can over the next 30 minutes. So start sending your questions in. Do like and comment as well with your feedback on our Facebook page. Do share it with your friends and family if you think they'll get benefited from it. So let's begin, Dr. Parikh. The COVID time has been very hard on people. It's been a year now. Initially, we were very, very restricted. People are not moving out, and they were couples who suddenly felt so helpless. At one point they were at home within a bubble, and the home seemed to bite them because what they were waiting for smiles, for laughter, for kids to fill up their home is not there. They're struggling with their the infertility journey, and the loneliness and the stillness of homes in COVID made it tougher. So how does one deal with all these emotional impact of infertility?
It's a very relevant question, Anisha, and I'm going to start right at the beginning. So my husband, Dr. Rajesh Parikh, who in fact has done a lot of counseling for our couples, he's a neuropsychiatrist for infertility, and we have a lot of data on that. And my husband, Swapnil, who specializes in infectious disease, were tracking the virus in Wuhan right from January, the beginning of January. So I was very much aware of what was happening. And since we were tracking it, we knew that this is going to have a global impact. So by the time the virus reached India, we were already mentally geared. And I was telling people who are coming to our department that please start social distancing, please keep space, please wash your hands. Every day I would start the day by telling them this. And many of them didn't take me seriously because nobody knew the impact. And at the point when the lockdown was to be initiated, 2 days before that, we decided to stop doing the cycles. And there were at least 40 women who were in different stages of their treatment. it was heartbreaking for all of us. Because imagine today, one has come with the feeling of relief that yes, now I'm going to start, to path towards parenthood. And then they're told that this virus is damaging, it can damage your reproductive organs, it can damage your lungs, you need to be in a bubble, you need social distancing. And there were so many who had come from different parts of the country and from abroad. And we had no option, but in the safe interest of the couple, the parents, we had to postpone the cycles. Now, we didn't know how long we would be postponing because, this was something indeterminate. And we have, although we have initiated our cycles, we started way back in September, but it has been on a very slow footing, very cautiously, because we know that the virus can have an impact on the reproductive organs. It can have some chances of vertical transmission to babies. In fact, antibodies have been found in newborns of, mothers. So it is always better to be cautious. Having said that, there have been countries and there have been patients and bodies like there's a center in USA where they formed a group of consultants and patients who said it was not fair to shut down. But then the ASRM, that is the American Society for Reproductive Medicine, decided what was emergency. For people suffering from cancer, it itself is such an emotional journey. There, if people wanted to have fertility retaining cryopreservation, it could not be denied. So there were people who had to work in bubbles. There were the frontline workers who helped some of these people. In India too, our fertility societies, we came up with a consensus, what is safe, what is unsafe. But what suffered the most over here, Anisha, is the emotional capacity of couples and also of doctors, because we were as heartbroken as everybody else, our doctors, our support staff, our embryologists, because it was like, somebody coming, the flower about to bloom, and everything just fades away.
Right. Dr. Parikh, now that patients come to you, I think slowly and steadily people have started coming. Do they come to you with new fears? Earlier, the fears are about their health, their condition, their age, their infertility. Are they now worried about newer things, the environment, whether the procedure is safe, whether the baby will be safe? Are they more stressed than what they were earlier?
Oh, I think as a culture, as a society, we are quite fatalistic and we sometimes, leave a lot of things. We say, it's our karma, God will take care of us. So many of us, although we are cautious, we also have this spirituality within us, which gives us that spirit to be a little resilient. So one thing that we have done in our program is we have created a 200-page SOP document. It's like a position paper on the different aspects, how the patient should be taken in, what are the precautions they have to take, what do the staff have to do, what is the social distancing, who are the patients who would qualify. Um, and we are very rigid as far as the medical part of the treatment is concerned. So, to give you some examples, just 3 days back, I had a couple where we had done all the screening for COVID, all the testing. They were ready for an embryo transfer just day before, and the day before that, her husband turned COVID positive. So imagine her embryos are being thawed. We are ready for the procedure, 24 hours left. And here we are telling somebody, look, it's not safe for you to carry the pregnancy right now because we don't know whether you have already got the COVID. So these are very real life situations which need a lot of emotional backing. And we need to sometimes not dissociate ourselves from just, the emotional impact that it has on couples. So, yes, we are faced with such situations and we do our best to gear up to these conditions and we do our best in counseling couples. In fact, whenever we are talking to couples, our first hour, and we are doing most of our consults on video because that is the new way of being, we spend almost 45 minutes in telling them the pros and cons of starting, whether they should defer. If they're young, we say, don't worry. In fact, in this time, there's a chance that you may conceive on your own, provided everything else is fine. And, people, this pandemic has taught us things. One, it has taught us to value life. It has taught us to value our family and our traditions. And I think it has brought many people closer together, I feel, friends, relatives, although we are not meeting one another. In fact, I think it has brought out the humanity in us and has made us more kind to people. So I think the pandemic has also taught us very important lessons, and it has also given us something to hope for. And this applies to infertility couples also, because strangely we have seen lot of couples have been now spending quality time with one another, conceiving spontaneously. So that is the good side of the equation.
Yes, in fact, there was data to show that in the new year, like 9 months after the lockdown started, we had many babies who were born. Goes to show that if you're relaxed, if you give yourself a chance, you stand a good chance to overcome your infertility battle. But Dr. Parikh, there is another important point here. Usually, in our family networks, in our setups, what happens is that if I'm going through an infertility problem, I reach out to my mother or to my mother-in-law. Even during my pregnancy, I have to take their help. During post-pregnancy, it's a norm that I go to my mother's house. Now all these things have to be thought through because you don't want to take a risk of exposing your elderly in the house. Many people still don't have household help to help them. So, in these living realities, what is the way forward? Should they still go and pursue their treatments, or should they just put it off for some time?
So I feel that if there are elderly people at home, if there are parents, and if you are going to be the caretaker for these people, and you are kind of conducting all the household affairs, and you are young, age is on your side, then I would certainly request such couples to defer for the time being, because we are as safe as our weakest link. So if our weakest link is unsafe, then everybody is unsafe. So I think this is a time to reflect. Luckily for us, our fortunes are turning. We are going to get vaccinated. At least that will afford some immunity. That will build up a herd immunity. And we will see, I'm quite hopeful that we will see a declining trend, at least in some parts of the country.
Dr. Parikh, this whole journey is fraught with many speed bumps. At one point of time, people feel that science has progressed a lot and we'll have a happy outcome. On the other hand, it is documented that it is not 100% success rate and it is not a foolproof science. It doesn't mean that you go for a cycle and you definitely come back with a baby. So, how do you counsel your patients? Because if you speak statistically, if you go through 3 cycles or 3 or 4 cycles, you'll have a better chance. There's a very good chance that you will be successful and go home with a baby. But going through 3 cycles itself, once you fail a couple of cycles, it just defeats you. You feel let down, and that defeat itself sometimes just derails your journey. So then, how do you counsel your patients?
So what we do is we never allow any couple to jump into IVF. Part of the work or part of the success that one will get depends on how well you have investigated a couple, how well you have offered them the different options, how well you have counseled them about their chances. It is for a couple, if you tell them, look, your chance is 30%, okay? It means nothing to them, because either they will not conceive, which is 0%, or they will conceive, which is 100%. So statistics can be used in two senses. I think an individual approach is very important. We spend a lot of our time, and that thanks to my husband Rajesh, who does a lot of counseling with his team. In fact, when we started practice, Rajesh would be looking at couples and he would be discouraging me from doing IVF on them. And that I learned a very big lesson. He would tell us that, look, this couple is right now not ready emotionally and mentally to do the IVF. And so we have become very cautious when we offer. In fact, sometimes we are so blunt to the point of sounding not rude, but when we tell something with an honesty, saying that, look, your chances are so much, suppose 10%, then the woman will say, but doctor, I was told it will be 40% for me. And then to kind of build up somebody's hope based on statistics, we
It
have to
doesn't
look at
work.
an individual couple. And sometimes they feel very defeated, or they get angry that, doctor, I've come for the first visit, and instead of giving me hope, doctor is telling me it won't work. But that is the rule of IVF. And the sooner we understand the logic behind IVF, the science of IVF,
Mm.
IVF is not just taking somebody's sperm and egg, putting them together and producing a baby, a test tube baby. IVF goes much beyond the realm of taking an egg in the sperm. Today, we are talking of IVF for genetic disorders, IVF for thalassemia, IVF for those who carry the cancer genes. We have helped people do sibling savior matches for couples with thalassemia carriers. We have done protection from cancer for women with breast cancer genes. So IVF is a science, and science cannot produce miracles. It can only elevate suffering. So we
Right.
have to be very practical.
So Dr. Parekh, you said you assess the emotional readiness of couples. How do you do that?
Yes,
And how do, if, in my mind, I really want a child, come what may, and I feel the science will help. So how do I emotionally prepare for this journey? Whether it is just, time cycles, being mindful, or IUI, or maybe IVF, how do I mentally prepare
yes.
my emotional state?
Yes. So as when the couple comes in first to us, we have a counselor on our team who will first spend about 45 minutes taking down the entire history, not necessarily the go into the reproductive history, but go into the family circumstances, how they feel about their condition, how long they've been trying, and they have certain scales. From the scales, they will judge the emotional balance of the couple, what are the comorbidities, psychological comorbidities that there are there. And this will be shared by the psychological team, the whole psychiatry and the counselors. And then they will decide on whether the couple is ready or not, how much ready they are, and what can we as the IVF specialists do. So then we have a joint consultation between the group of doctors, and then we have the couple come in and we guide them. It's not for everyone. It is where we feel that the emotional load is so much that it is going to impact. There are many people who will just whiz through. They there is, the different personality. Some people will say,
Mm.
okay, I'm ready for it. Do it today. If it's tomorrow, do it today. But then you have to look at the entire spectrum. And there are those who have need to handle very gently. And one of the things I have learned is to listen. When you listen attentively to a couple or to anybody, you will get so much information. The body, the mind of that person will tell us so much. And I tell you, I learn a lot from body language than I hear from the word that is spoken. And if you're mindful, you will pick up lots of cues which will in fact give you direction as to which way you go. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you about a couple who were not having sex at all. Now, if you don't have sex, how do you produce a baby? But they were very scared and thought something was bizarrely wrong with them that they were not having sex. Now, how, when we ask them that, is your sex life okay? Usually the doctor will write the whole history. And this couple said, we having regular sex, everything fine. But when I did an internal examination on the woman, I realized that it was not possible for her to have intercourse. So these are fine nuances that you pick up when you go into the depth of examining a patient or taking a fine history. So when the couple comes to us, almost 45 minutes to an hour goes in the clinical evaluation, the history, talking, giving them comfort, understanding where they are coming from. And then the options are always explained. So I think it's a doctor's duty to not only give a baby to a couple, but to give the comfort, the feeling of well-being. And we have written a book called The Complete Guide to Becoming Pregnant. In that, we have various chapters that we have addressed when there is male infertility, female infertility. What are the paths less traveled? What happens if IVF fails? What are the foods you should eat? What is your emotional well-being? What is its connect to your getting pregnant? What is your support system? Where do you turn to when you
Right.
don't conceive? So I always tell patients when they have not, it has not worked, they feel, oh God, I'm such a failure. Everything in my life is all
Mm.
because of me. So it's important to counsel them that you are not failure. Your treatment was a failure, but you are the same person that you are. In fact, you are even more beautiful because you're so resilient. You have listened to everything we have told you. So there is a lot of emotional baggage that patients carry, and rightly so. And sometimes we think that the woman takes a lot of brunt, but many times the men are very emotional, but they do not know how to voice the emotions. And I've seen men too breaking down, crying, perhaps not in front of the family. Sometimes they come back later on, and we can see how devastated they are, but it's difficult for them to cry in front,
Express it.
express
Yes.
it. Yes.
Dr. Parikh, thank you so much for reminding everyone about that book. In fact, I have that book with me and I've read that book as well.
Wonderful.
This is an opportunity where everybody, those watching, have got this golden opportunity to ask you questions, and you're getting a lot of questions. So we've got a Facebook user whose question is: I'm 32 years old, married for 1.5 years. I'm trying to conceive, but I can't. Now, would you say she's having an infertility problem? She's been trying only 1.5 years, but then she is 32.
Yeah. So she's 32, and how I would address the situation is your husband also your age? Have you done any basic tests? Now, what do I mean by basic tests? One is to look at the reproductive organs. Is somebody done a sonography for you? Is your anti-Mullerian hormone test done? Are you having regular intercourse? Are you ovulating regularly? Is the semen count good? Do you smoke, or does your husband smoke? Do you exercise? Are you obese? What is your BMI? So this is the baseline from which to start. If all these things are within the normal parameters, I would assure you that please do try a little bit more. If in the next 6 months, because you are young, you are in your early 30s, if in the next 6 months, if all these parameters are fine, then I would urge you to see a specialist. But don't put yourself through much more than what I have told you at this moment. Do these basic tests. And if you get a clear 10 on 10 on this, try on your own.
All right. Dr. Parikh, I'm going to combine two questions that we've got from our Facebook users. So one question is, my AMH is low, 0.22. Is there a chance to conceive with my own eggs? If yes, what are the chances and the solutions for this? And a similar question is, in IVF, what are the consequences of having low AMH levels?
Okay. So both are very relevant questions, particularly if I may ask the first viewer, I need to know the ages of both the women. So if we have the age.
No, ma'am, they haven't mentioned their age. Just saying that they have low. One is having a low AMH count. The other one is saying what is the role of AMH count in IVF cycle.
Very good. They're both very relevant questions. So we have just written a paper which we are going to publish very soon, where we have shown that Indian women as compared to Caucasian women age 6 years earlier. Means if a Caucasian woman has a certain AMH at the age of 40, around the age of 33 or 30, between 33 and 35, that will be the age of an Indian woman. And we have shown by tracing the AMH of fertile women and infertile women. Infertile means not they are infertile, but they've come as a couple with infertility, that the AMH is declining very fast. We are also working on something called endocrine disrupting chemicals, which you find in plastics, in cosmetics, in varnish, in furniture material, and this come from bisphenol and phthalates. So in our program, and I would like to tell all the viewers, please do not use water from plastic bottles, do not use non-stick pans, please make sure you use ceramic, you use stainless steel, don't use aluminum. Make sure that you have filters, air purifiers in your home, because there's so much smog, so much potential pollution. There are so many studies, and there are literally hundreds of studies that have shown that people who stay close to petrol pumps, fumes, there is a decline in the fertility and there is a higher chance of miscarriage. There are papers and research which shows that people who work in beauty parlors and who are doing the polishing and the spraying of customers, they have more chances of infertility and miscarriage. People who clean toilets and housekeeping, they have a history of miscarriages on. So these are all chemicals that is causing this. Now see, in India, there was rampant use of DDT till the late
Mm.
80s. And people are using disposables as if there is no tomorrow. You will see, even in hilly areas where you go for a holiday, you will see plastic littered around. Now, that is the major cause for our women having a low AMH. I've been practicing for the last 33 to 35 years, and we used to see men with semen counts of 100 and 200 million. Over these last 30 years, if I see a count of 60 million, I'm so happy. We usually see counts of 20 to 40 million these days. Okay, so there is a definite link between pollution and semen. Today, I want to tell all the young girls that you are having a low AMH not because of what you are done, it's because of what your mother and her mother have been exposed to since the 80s, even before the 80s, say somewhere around the 60s and 70s, because we are all exposed to plastics, we are all exposed to chemicals. Therefore, try to lead a life which detoxifies you, have lots of fluids, have a lot of green vegetables, but again, wash your vegetables, make sure that they are they are fresh. Also, this thing about organic vegetables, please understand there is no such thing as organic. Everything goes through chemical processing. So when you say that, oh, I'm eating organic and I'm very fit and nothing will happen, please revise your thinking. Please go into how that organic fruit or vegetable is made. Many of the things that we do which we think are very good for us can actually be bad, like cooking in Teflon coated. I
Non-stick.
think
Yes.
it's good. It will save time. It will save oil. But no, the
The coating
chemicals that will
comes
leach out,
off.
these
Yes.
are very
So,
bad.
so Dr. Parikh, then if because of not my kismat that my AMH is low, but what happened historically, but then what is the consequence? How does it impact an IVF and what can be done?
Yeah. So there are a lot of papers which say that young women with low AMH will do as good as young women whose AMH is reasonably good. Older women with low AMH do not do well. So for older women, what we have to offer is multiple rounds of IVF, offer them to do pre-implantation genetic testing on the embryos, select the normal embryos, and then transfer those. For those who are young, but low AMH, if all good, if the semen parameters are good, they could try intrauterine insemination and only resort to IVF if the intrauterine insemination doesn't work. Good idea to be mindful, practice yoga, meditation. These are many, many things that help. Mindfulness helps a lot. Be careful what you speak, be careful what you inhale, be careful what you eat.
Right. We have another question coming in from Facebook user. What is the success rate of implantation of 8-month-old frozen embryo and how to increase the chance of implantation? This is my first cycle. I had my first transfer. For transfer, everything was good. The lining was better than triple layer and PRP was done. Still, the cycle was not successful. So could it be that the embryo was frozen for 8 months? Was that a reason? She's trying to understand how to improve chances of implantation.
Yes, very good question. It needs a little bit of detail. First of all, we need to know what is her age. If her lining was good, then why was PRP done? If the lining is triple layer, PRP is the injection of platelet-rich plasma, which is prepared from the patient's blood, and then it is instilled before 2 to 3 days before the embryo transfer. So if her lining was so-called good, there was no need to do PRP. So that is something she must ask her doctor why PRP was done. Was there some issue with her lining? Then I don't know at what stage the embryo was when it was transferred. Was it transferred at 4 cell, 8 cell? At what stage? What is her age? What were the semen parameters? Was the husband's DNA fragmentation index done? So, that's what I'm saying. IVF is not just taking an egg and a sperm, making an embryo and putting it in. There are so many nuances. If this particular viewer would want to address an email with her history, she's welcome to do that. She can stick to her doctor. She doesn't need to come to me. But I would be happy to address her question in detail. because I don't have the full history in front of me.
Right. We'll share your email address in the comment section as well, Dr. Parikh. We have another question which has come in from a user who's asking, can one get pregnant if they have fibroids?
If they have fibroids?
Yes, fibroids.
So, again, it's a general question. It will depend on many things. It will depend upon the position of the fibroid. It will depend upon how many fibroids are there. It will depend upon whether the fibroid has taken away the blood supply from the uterus. It will depend on whether the fibroid is associated with adenomyosis or endometriosis. So, if it's a small fibroid away from the uterine cavity, yes, you can conceive naturally. If it is a small fibroid but it is within the uterine cavity, you may have difficulty. If there are multiple fibroids, you may have difficulty. If there are large fibroids, you may have difficulty. If your fibroid is associated with adenomyosis, endometriosis, yes, you can have difficulty. So, by and large, small fibroids don't need to be treated. Location of the fibroid is very important. If you keep getting recurring fibroids, that's not a good sign. So, are there any other associated conditions? Again, those need to be treated.
All right. Doctor, another user is asking, I am 32 years old and my husband is suffering from low count and slow motility. Is it the right time to take a call on for IVF?
So just a semen parameter of count and motility is not considered adequate to go into IVF. Sometimes when there is a very low count, and I don't know what the count is, but if it is significant oligospermia, first we need to do some genetic testing. We also need to do a test called DNA fragmentation index, where we look at the DNA which is fragmented in the sperm head, and we also do what is known as sperm fish for aneuploidy, fluorescence in situ hybridization. So the way I would guide you is, does your husband have a varicocele? Does he smoke? Is he an excessive drinker? Is he diabetic? Is there any erectile dysfunction? And what is the nature of his work? Is he exposed to any chemicals? Is there any genetic history? Is there any brother who has any problem? Have there been miscarriages in the past? So these are some relevant questions before one jumps into IVF. So good history, a good understanding is very important.
All right. Dr. Parikh, thank you so much for joining us today and answering so many of these questions. As a doctor, I'm sure you would have required more data to be able to answer them conclusively, but all your answers are really welcome and they give at least a good information to the patients to then take it up with their doctors and go forward with the right information. Thank you so much, Dr. Parikh, for joining us and answering all the questions that you have answered today. So that was Dr. Parikh of Jaslok Hospital, Mumbai. So if you have any more questions, you can send them to us through WhatsApp. You can just click on the WhatsApp button on our Facebook page and don't forget to follow us and stay updated on all your concerns about your health and well-being. This program was supported by Bharat Serums and Vaccines under its Public Awareness Initiative. We'll be back with a special show on women's healthcare same time next week. So do follow us on Facebook to get all the updates of our upcoming shows. Do keep sending us your questions. We will try to include them in our next show. Till then, stay at home and take care. Goodbye and see you soon.